to it at a later date. So so I talked a little bit about me. Here's just some members of our leadership team here. And if you have any questions for me, and I'm going to go through this fairly quickly today because we've got some people with us today that have been here multiple times and you know, probably a little bit more advanced than what we typically see during the webinar. So I won't spend a whole bunch of time going to a whole bunch of detail, but you can reach out to me later if you need to. If you have any questions, two ways to get them to me. You can raise your hand. There's a raise hand feature on your control panel, or you can send it to me via chat, at which point I'll be happy to address those questions when we have a break in the action. So we're not here, you know, wasting our time. There's three things I hope to have happen by the time we conclude this webinar today in the next 30-35 minutes. I want you to start to learn or to know how to calculate how much money your PBM is making. I'm not talking about plan costs at the end of the year. I'm talking about how much money the PBM is making, which contributes mightily to the final plan costs. I want you to feel something other than indifference about what you learned today, and then I want you to take some sort of action around what you learned today. We're not going to be able to fix the problem overnight. Right? It's going to take a little bit of time. You got to crawl before you can walk. So obviously, price is a concern around the pharmacy benefits, specifically today, specialty drugs. Our solution, the solution that I'm recommending, when I say our, I'm talking about, you know, my company, but we're not here for that today. But my recommendation to address that problem isn't bigger discounts or bigger rebate guarantees. It's about eliminating information asymmetry or information failure, which is just simply this. And it's an actual theory. It's an economic and contractual theory. When one party has access for greater material knowledge than another party, it uses that access to information or greater material knowledge than another party. And these two parties are sitting at the negotiating table. The party with the better information, the greater material knowledge, is going to use it to its financial advantage. It's going to leverage that greater information. PBMs leverage information asymmetry or information failure to make it difficult to determine or calculate how much money they're making when you hire them. Here's an example of information success. I need to just kind of tone it down just a little. I've been doing this for 10 years and I'm getting a little frustrated because I'm not seeing enough change. Not seeing enough change. There are groups today with 30, 50,000 members who don't receive a rebate remittance report. All it is a receipt that says, as a PBM, this is what we received from the manufacturer in terms of rebates at the NDC level, at the claim level. The date the claim was adjudicated, the name of the drug, the NDC, the day supply, and then, of course, the amount of the rebate that was paid by the manufacturer to the PBM. They've never seen this. The benefits brokers that have been doing this for 15, 20 years have never seen one of these. Right? And when a PBM is unwilling to share it, it is information failure, because this is information that you can use to lower your cost. And that's why PBMs don't want to share it. The lower your cost, the less they make. I had a conversation on Monday with a health plan This is just for their employees and the employees' dependents. 30,000. 30,000. And the incumbent PBM isn't going to share with that health plan their own claims data. Their own claims data. And their broker's in on it. And this is the kind of excuses. There is nothing worse than getting into a deal with a PBM and you can't get your own information. There's nothing worse than that. It's one thing to overpay and you have your own data, but you choose to overpay. It's another to not even get the information in the first place. And so for you out there, you know, this is a classic example of a redirect. It's alligator tears. When the broker says we're frustrated with our own colleagues in our own company because they won't give it to us. It's alligator tears. It's a redirect. This isn't the first time it's happened. It's not going to be the last time it's happened. It's been happening for a decade plus. This is the games that are played because they're leveraging information asymmetry. And so, this leads us to the status quo. And this is why PBMs engage in information asymmetry, because they know when they can get their clients into a deal that calls for an artificially too low administrative fee. That also includes foregoing your pharmacy rebates in exchange for an admin fee credit on your medical administrative fee. Same thing. It's the same game as on your pharmacy benefit paying no administrative fee, or paying something like $1, $1.50, $2, $3.50. That means the PBM has been given a green light to generate its management fee primarily through those three buckets that you see there. This is another example of the previous slide, just so that you know or have additional proof. Remember, I talked to you. You know, I was working for a pharmaceutical manufacturer, Eli Lilly, at this time. It was all about the small molecule brand drug rebates at that time. That's what PBMs were pushing. And then you got smart through education. You close that loophole off. Remember mandatory mail? Everyone just, no, this can't happen, right? This can't happen. You can't force us to go mail. And then when that hidden cash flow source got closed off, PBMs moved it to more complex drugs, your specialty drugs, your biologics, and driving the bulk of their profit through that source. Now, you're also starting to get smart about closing off that hidden cash flow streams, but the PBMs for the last 5 years or so have already predicted that that would happen. And so now they fully integrated now and moved out this lost revenue. Now it's back out here to medical benefit drug claims. I saw something the other day. Smart people, out on LinkedIn, they're talking about, prescription drug prices, I mean, they're going down. they were talking about on the pharmacy benefit. They failed to mention what prices are doing under the medical benefit, right? No longer are we separating pharmacy and medical in terms of managing drug costs. The channels are different, right? But the tools to manage them are similar. And PBMs should be participating in both benefits. And you don't have to own a medical carrier to do that. So listen, it may sound like I'm bashing PBMs. That's not what I'm doing. I have a problem with non-fiduciary PBMs. I have a problem with PBMs who refer to themselves as pass-through or transparent. Because my definition and what I hope your definition will soon be doesn't align with how they perform. A fiduciary PBM makes money one way. Can't just talk about it. It's got to be binding in the contract language. That's through a transparent administrative fee. There are 5 ways PBMs make money. We'll talk about them. Primarily 5 ways. Of those 5, only 1 is radically transparent and can be measured quite easily. That's the administrative fee. The other 4 ways are very difficult to ascertain, as I mentioned in the beginning. We'll get to that. Non-fiduciary PBMs, again, I don't care what they call themselves. I don't care how they price drugs. They charge a low admin fee, but then augment that fee in the back end. It's important to understand that the PBM business model really quickly here, because the one thing that really doesn't jump off this particular slide is that we never control the product as a PBM, right? Unless we own a mail or a specialty pharmacy. That presents its own issues. We don't have time for that today. But when that drug is dispensed through a chain pharmacy or an independent pharmacy, we never control the product. And so we contract with these pharmacies to have sites from which prescriptions can be dispensed to our plan participants. And then we bill third-party payers and health plans for those dispensed prescriptions. We got to have clients who provide those services too. And so then we reimburse the pharmacy, and then the third-party payer health plan pays the pharmacy benefit manager for what we reimburse to those pharmacies. There's a few problems here in this business model. First, the inflow of cash in the form of rebates, in other words, a refund, is too low. I showed you 2 slides how PBMs generate the bulk of their profit. 2 slides, 2 different sources, both of those sources, and because I don't want you to hear from me, I want you to hear from someone else. Both of those sources say that rebates drive PBM's profits. So if PBM is keeping a share of the rebates, that means you're not getting a large enough share, or your client is not getting a large enough share. That's the first problem. The second problem is, and let me erase this slide here really quickly. The second problem here is that the reimbursements going back to PBMs is too high. A little bit more about that here in a second, but here's the third problem. This is a very complex system. And in this complex system, there's one group that funds the entire thing. And that group is here. It's you. It's your clients that fund this entire freaking system. Yet you know the least about how it works. What do you think's going to happen? The very, very sophisticated third-party payers and health plans, they cover the PBM's overhead, right? The very, very smart cover the PBM's overhead. The unsophisticated, those who are educated in this space or uneducated in this space, pay for the bloated payrolls, right? The pretentious parties and private jets and dividends, right? That's what they pay for. The more you know, the less you pay. The second problem, I talked about the reimbursements coming from the plan sponsors, the third-party payer help back to the PBM being too high because of a spread. A spread is not a billing error. It is intentional. It is the difference between what a health plan, a third-party payer reimburses a pharmacy benefit manager and what that pharmacy benefit manager reimburses the pharmacy. The difference between the two is a spread. Let's take a look really quickly on how it manifests in the real world. Let's take a look at phentermine. Phentermine 30 milligram capsule, AWP, and listen, this is old, right? We update this every week, but this particular is old, but the calculation is the same, happens every day. The AWP, and let's assume that this AWP directly from Medispan, reported by Medispan, right? AWP 151. Let's say that the generic effective rate or the discount that was negotiated by the third-party payer, large self-funded employer, union, let's say that the generic effective rate off of AWP equates to an 85% discount. Right, so that's going to get us right around 128 or so is the discount. Right, so let's call that a 2. That's going to leave us with $23. That's the cost to the large self-funded employer for this particular drug. That's the cost. 85% GER, there are a lot of plans that would take that and be dancing. If they achieve an overall GER from retail, non-mail, 85%, take that all day and be dancing. Many of them are closer to 80, 81%. 4% is a big, big difference when you're talking about several $1 million. That's what radical transparency gets you. So this costs $23. Take a look at what the pharmacy paid to put the product on the shelf. $7. That's the acquisition cost, $7. Now let's tack on a markup. The pharmacy has to make a profit. Let's double it. I can tell you, having owned a pharmacy, you can speak to independent pharmacists. They'll tell you they would love to get 100% markup on a generic. Some of them are underwater on generics on some claims. They would love to get 100%. If I were getting 100% markup on every generic claim we had when I owned a mail order pharmacy, I'm not sure I'd be here today. doing what I'm doing, probably still in the pharmacy business, but not sure I would be here owning a PBM today if I were getting 100% markup on generics. So the reason I raise that is this is an AWP benchmark that's being used. There's going to be a minus associated with to determine what the large employer, self-funded employer's cost is going to be. That's the benchmark being used. The PBM is going to double the markup to the pharmacy, and we still have here $9 left over. That's the spread. That's the spread. If the MAC was being used, let's say that the MAC was, let's call it $19. The PBM's out of pocket doesn't change. The pharmacy's going to get the same price. Let's just assume that, right? That leaves a $5 spread. When you look at this, and trust me when I tell you, more important than the benchmark being used, whether it's AWP, whether it's MAC, whether it's NADAC, whether it's WAC, whether it's ASP, doesn't matter. As much as the third-party payer's cost matching that of the pharmacy. That's what matters most. The third-party payer's cost that is being billed by the PBM to match what the pharmacy is being reimbursed for those same prescriptions. If the PBM decides it's not going to take a spread, it doesn't matter what the price benchmark is. Come on now. It doesn't matter. The pharmacy's reimbursement is all how they're reimbursed. That methodology is usually more aggressive than that of what the plan sponsor is being billed. Meaning, for example, the MAC list is going to have more generic drugs on it than the MAC list that the PBM has between it and its client. Or the prices on the MAC list that the PBM has for pharmacies in its network are going to be lower than the prices that the PBM uses to determine its client's cost. That creates a spread. The state of Ohio learned this the hard way. A couple years ago, these results were made available to the public. They were made available to the public. And what they did was they pivoted. Remember I talked about sophisticated versus unsophisticated? Instead of negotiating discounts at the state level, it's usually ASP, right? Instead of negotiating bigger discounts or bigger rebate minimum guarantees, for the first time, what they decided was, we want to know how much we're paying you. We want to know how much we're paying you. Now think about this for a second. As a PBM, we go to pharmacies and we negotiate reimbursements and, you know, what we're going to pay them for dispensing drugs. We go to manufacturers and we negotiate what they should pay us for putting their drugs on our formulary. And then ultimately, how much market share those drugs acquire as a result of being on our formulary. Those deals are done. Like we don't go back through the course of the year and renegotiate just because we win a new client or lose a client. No, they're done. So when you sit down with a PBM, you see these AWP discounts and MAC prices and NADAC. Listen, they are what they are, benchmarks. But they are also distractions. Because ultimately, when you sit down with a PBM, what you are trying to do is negotiate what they are going to keep. You are really negotiating what you are going to pay them. The less you pay us, the lower your cost. Now, see, just hang in here with me. I want to show you an example, and it's probably going to jump off the page at you. Our deals are done. They are static. We don't renegotiate until every 3, 4, or 5 years. They're done. When you sit down with us, we don't go back and say, hey, Acme Inc., they're not happy with us. They're 50,000 life group and they're going to leave, but we don't give them a better deal. And then the manufacturer or the pharmacy network capitulates. No. If you pay less from a PBM, it's not because we renegotiated your deal with our networks, and it's because we're giving you more out of our pocket that you were paying us in the beginning anyway. When the state of Ohio realized that they were paying these 2 PBMs in 1 year almost $250 million just in spreads. We're not even talking about rebates. Just in spreads, they terminated the contracts essentially overnight. Once the findings from the report came out from the audit was based on a pivot looking at how much we're paying you, what are you keeping, and they did the right thing. You have to determine whether or not what you're paying is fair. If you think it's fair, then you're in a good deal. If you think you're overpaying the PBM, get out and renegotiate. I talked about nuances from the contract language, and I'm making pretty good time here. Nuances of the pharmacy benefit, the contract, 2 examples here: MAC list, duplicity, rebates. I see you, Rena. I'm going to try and get rebates equal self-dealing, right? I talked about the MAC list already. If the PBM is not radically transparent and or acting in a fiduciary manner, the employer's MAC list is less comprehensive and less aggressive. That means it has fewer generics with MAC pricing, and the employer's prices are higher than the MAC prices paid to the pharmacy. That creates the spread. Contract language, I just can't. This is another thing. I just don't believe it. I just don't believe it. Every time I hear, Michael Jordan and Magic Johnson, yeah, they tried to be coaches. Michael Jordan was a player coach. Magic Johnson was a coach on the sideline, but they weren't good at it because they expected everyone to be as good as them. I'm not comparing myself to Michael Jordan or Magic Johnson, but geez, you have to be able to. You have to be able to see this in the contract language. That's what's creating the frustration. For me, it is, I'd rather not offer the benefit if I've got to sign this contract. We'll find another way. I got a contract I just received the other day. I want to show it to you so bad so that you can see what I'm talking about here, so that you can see it for yourself. The contract language will typically say something, the plan sponsor can get formulary rebates, but the PBM, we're going to keep the administrative fees, and we're going to keep any fees from the manufacturer around clinical program management, right? Something like that. That's outcomes. That's performance-based rebates that manufacturers pay pharmacy benefit man that you are entitled to, every single penny of it, unless you sign a contract that says you waive that right. That's essentially what you do. This came out about 3 years ago. The actual disagreement between the two entities started about 5 years ago, but this came out about 2.5, 3 years ago. It's public information. Kaleo, a specialty drug maker, product Ezio, was sued by Express Scripts because Kaleo refused to pay rebates that Express Scripts believed it was owed, which I'm sure they were owed the money. Kaleo just refused to pay it. In that public dispute, that lawsuit, administrative fees dwarf the formulary rebates. These administrative fees aren't to be confused with the administrative fees that are paid to PBMs for adjudicating claims or account management or member access to a web portal, things like that. Not the same. This is essentially the PBM sitting down with the manufacturer saying, okay, for this particular drug, we want 25% of the list price to be paid as a rebate, as an example. And then the PBMs, and once they agree on that number, and I'm telling you this, it's not anecdotal. I was in that room. Sometimes you just take a path. You don't know where it's going, but it's destiny. It is destiny for me to be here with you to tell you what I know. I didn't know it then. I was in that room. It is, okay, let's agree on 25%. And then it is, okay, this is how we're going to divide it up. That is led by the PBM. It's not driven by the manufacturer. The manufacturer is a big part of what that final refund is going to be. But then the PBM is saying, okay, we want 7% to go to access rebates. We want another 10% to go to administrative fees. And then we want, let's go 5% to go to market share rebates. And then let's go 3% to formulary rebates. And then you or your clients are presented with a contract where you get 100% of the formulary rebates, or maybe you agree to 95% of the formulary rebates, but you fail to address these three. In the contract language, it gets better. Price protection rebates. It, essentially, if the drug goes up by certain percent in a certain time period, usually a short window, then outside of inflationary price increases, right? And so that essentially means that in the contract, if the manufacturer increases the price X percent within a short window, then it is responsible for increasing the rebate to the PBM to coincide with that kind of rapid or drastic price increase. Don't get me started on product discounts. You see that in contracts too. It's a rebate. It's a refund for your drug purchases. Outcomes rebates. Again, I mentioned it earlier. Uh, uh, usually in the contract, you'll see something around clinical program management or performance-based, some clinical fees, something around in that area. That's this. Been going on for over a decade. Software has finally caught up to keep track of these metrics. Been going on for over a decade. So if a drug falls short of a metric that was agreed upon between a PBM and a manufacturer, then the manufacturer refunds according to the contract, either a percent, a flat dollar amount, or the entire amount. So here's the bottom line, what I'm getting to. It takes guts. Like it, I'm on my sports analogies today. Like this is, this is Super Bowl. It's 4th and 1, and you're on the 30-yard line. You're down by 6. Instead of a goal line offense to just get the 1 yard, Tom Brady fakes the handoff and goes deep. Start looking at what the PBM is putting in its bank account and then work back from there. Because ultimately, what the PBM is putting in its bank account is hidden here, folks. I can't believe it that we're not looking at this number. The non-fiduciary PBM gives you great optics. If the numbers were so great, then why do we have to have the Supreme Court come in and say you have to stop this? If they were so good, why did we need that? It was just optics. When you overpay here, it goes in the PBM's bank account. When you get underpaid here, it goes in the PBM's bank account. You don't believe me about the optics? This is coming from the CEO of CVS Health. Let me tell you what this says in layman's terms. We're going to make as much money as we possibly can. And the amount of money that we're going to make is ultimately going to depend on how sophisticated or unsophisticated our clients might be. You got to be able to read through the BS. He mentions the word contract here. You got to stop spending all your time on the BAA. I promise you this up front, and I'm wrapping up here. I mentioned earlier that PBMs make money primarily 5 ways. One of those ways is transparent. Can't hide it, can't hide it. It's the admin fee. Whether it's a per paid claim, a per employee per month, or a per member per month, it is transparent. The other 3 that you see are not. It is how the state of Ohio was bitten by $250 million. You saw the examples between Kaleo and Express Scripts with the rebates. Everything in green at some point lands in the PBM's bank account. It lands in the PBM's bank account. In red, cash disbursements are dollars that leaves the PBM's bank account after it recoups these dollars here in green. A cash disbursement would be a reimbursement to a pharmacy for a dispensed drug in the form of ingredient costs. Another cash disbursement would be the PBM paying you formulary rebates, but it's keeping price protection, market share, access, outcomes rebates, and product discounts. It's keeping all of that. Whatever's left over is what is being paid for its management fee. The other fee that is not on here, and I'm going to incorporate that because it's about time, it's called DIR fees. D as in dog. That is horrible. DIR fees. Direct, indirect remuneration. This happens after the claim has been adjudicated. You never see it. It started with the Part D program, public. And then PBM's like, oh, geez, we can do this on the commercial side too and make even more money. It is fees that are charged to pharmacies after the claim has been adjudicated. They're just there to make money. Whatever reason PBMs say that, administrative fees, audits and, network fees, it's a revenue stream that lowers the drug costs, that you should benefit from, but you don't. Again, optics. The new path says this, folks. The new path says this. It's only a matter of time. It's only a matter of time. Do you want to be a part of the change? You want to be a catalyst for the change, a part of the change, or are you just going to wait for the change? It's coming. PBM makes money one way. Can't contractually make money any other way, or it's going to be in trouble. Not just in terms of losing clients, but I'm talking about running afoul of governments. And so now, instead of seeing 50 cents per claim, $2 per claim, if some of these more opaque PBMs have got to forego all of these self-dealing hidden cash flows, you're going to start to see per paid claim fees or PEPM fees that are similar to what you see on the medical side. There is talk that if PBMs were forced to be transparent, move all of their costs, their management fee to a paid claim fee, these fees for many of these larger PBMs are starting at $25 per paid claim and then going up from there. We brought this company on in 2020. And the full year results, we were able to cut their costs 60%. We're not done. Not even close. The incumbent 5788 was the PMPM. Our cost $23.12. That $35 difference, PMPM, was Prime's management fee. I told you. At a minimum, Prime was keeping, if we can make money ourselves, and that cost, our management fee is built into this $23.12, at a minimum, Prime was making $35 PMPM, the difference between these two, because you have to reasonably assume, we all know they do better at network pricing and rebates from manufacturers. It is closer to $40 to $45 PMPM that they were charging as their management fee. Folks, that's more than what the drugs cost. The management fee was higher than the ingredient cost. See, I just don't say things because everybody talks in this business. Everybody brags about what they can do, and I'm the greatest thing, and this other company over here is not as good. We're better for you. I'm just going to show you. There is more opportunity for your clients out there. And so listen, I'm wrapping up here. We've started a trade organization that's going to launch this summer. And a part of that is our foundational credential that we started about 5 years ago, the Certified Pharmacy Benefit Specialist designation. For 8 weeks, we go into more detail about the stuff we talk here, and then we even get into benefit design. So listen, I'll let the testimonial speak for itself. You go out on the web, but if you're interested in learning more, improving yourself, wanting to break into the PBM business, want to do more for your company and create a culture around demanding transparency from your vendors, and you want to focus on pharmacy benefits, that's the course for you. Eli Bro, real quick, I'm a graduate of Michigan State University. Our business school is named after Eli Bro, which I graduated from. He just passed away this past weekend or last week. And the reason I bring him up is he was the first person, and I think still the only person, to be a founder of 2 Fortune 500 companies, KB Homes and Sun America, which I think today is Sun Life Financial. The only person ever. After he retired from business, he dedicated his life to philanthropic endeavors. One of them being medicine. The man believes it starts with education. I happen to agree with him. Last point I'm going to make. I know nothing about automobiles. I'm even a little hesitant about changing a flat tire. That's how little I know about automobiles. When I go into a repair shop and I need something done to my car, I know it's not running properly, I go in with my head high, my chest stuck out, I'm banging my fist on the table, and I'm saying, you're offering me services I don't need. And then they're offering me services I need, but I say I don't need them. Because I want them to believe you're not going to take me for a ride. I'm no chump. Inevitably, I end up having to take the car back because I need a service that I said I don't want. Or I overpay for services because I think I need it, but I don't, and they're able to get me on it. Because I'm not educated in car repair. Don't be me when you are engaging a PBM for pharmacy benefit management services. Be better than me. Take someone in with you. Who can tell you that the contract is airtight. There's no game playing here. They are being square with you. And I promise you, not only do you get lower costs, but you eventually get better outcomes with your members. It's just true. Listen, that's all the time I've got today. I appreciate you hanging in there. I might have 1 or 2 questions here. Question: why do typical PBM contracts have 90-day advance notice termination clause? I agree with you, Rena. Here's what I will say about that. Your response to the PBM could be for your client, as a matter of policy, we only allow 30 days. Right? Something, and I'm not saying as a matter of corporate policy, we only permit 30 days. Right? Something like that. I'm not saying that's going to get you out of every situation, But usually when you're talking to a PBM and you say a matter of corporate policy, this is our corporate policy, this is it. Now, if the PBM doesn't budge on that, and it's a sticking point for you, then you got to be willing to walk away. All right. The other question, how do you know there are no other cash flows? There's one way to know. The PBM has got to be radically transparent with you, meaning for pharmacy claims, it gives you access to 835 remittance reports. Those reports detail what we pay pharmacies. And so you can compare that to what you were being billed. I'm not talking about the claims data to your contract, you know, what the discount guarantees are in there. No, I'm talking about the 835s at the pharmacy level. From the manufacturer standpoint, first you always got to have the contract to make sure that there are no hidden cash flows built in. And if there are hidden cash flows built in, then the PBM's taking the money every chance it gets. It just is. It's taking the money every chance it gets. There has to be something in there where the PBM saying, we're not going to make any money any other way and than the admin fee. And if you discover that we are making money any other way, we've got to recoup you, and then there's going to be financial penalties associated with that. That's when you know there's no other cash flows, when there are penalties built into the PBM when they take them and you discover them. The second piece is you got to have access to all the information. If you're not getting any data around rebates, for example, no remittance reports, then you have to assume that the PBM is leveraging that to put money in their bank account, right? You just do. But you get those reports and you match that up to what you're being paid, and in conjunction with a radically transparent contract, then Rena, you're well on your way to not only being able to calculate all cash flows, eliminating them. All right, that's my time for today. Listen, everyone, be safe out there. You should get a recording or a link to the recording in your email. Appreciate your time today.